Shalom to all the people out there in the earth realm. We want to greet you in the mighty and wonderful name of Yahushua. My name's Dr. Trevor U. Dennis, and this tonight is Hebrew Interviews. Well, it's night here in the UK, but of course it is afternoon to some of you, and it may even be morning to some others. So we are glad to have you here tonight, because this is the time where we are going to interview our elder statesman. I mean, one of our elders in Yasharal, who is full of knowledge and full of understanding. He's going to share with you tonight some principles that have guided his success. But even before that, we've got to get into the man and let the man know that we appreciate him. So why don't you like, subscribe, share, click the bell if you are here, and let everyone know that you are here. We want to say, first of all, greetings to Sister Mertice, who is in the United States of America, in New Jersey, I believe. So we welcome you, my sister. And for all of those of you who are also listening, make sure you say hi, hello to our guests tonight. And when you are online and you have some questions, write them down and let us know, so that we'll be able to answer those questions before he finishes. So we're looking forward to a wonderful session, and I'm going to bring online Elder Johnie Perryman. So why don't you just introduce yourself to the world, Elder? Let the world know who you are and where you come from. I know that you've been with us a long time. Chosen by Yah, welcome, welcome, welcome. Go ahead, Elder. Over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Brother Trevor, and I thank you for allowing me to be a part of the program here. I want to first say hello to everybody in the United Kingdom, everybody in England, and thank you for, like I say, having me here. And right here, it is afternoon, and I live in Clariton, Pennsylvania. I've been here 14 years, moved here from Seattle, Washington. And Seattle, Washington, if you heard anything about them, that place is booming. I mean, they're putting up a skyscraper every 10 minutes, it seems. And there's a lot of money there. Things was going crazy there. And I had to get out of there. When I was raised in Seattle, I was raised by a single mother. She was married, but they had been separated for most of their marriage. And I was raised by a single mother. And I went through some hard times. And we went through some periods where we were quite hungry, you know. And as I went to school, and at school they tried to tell me that I wasn't college material. Now they were telling me all the teachers I had were white, and they were telling me I wasn't college material, even though when I was in junior high school, I was teaching teachers about Zeno's theories on change and movement, and about metaphysics, things they didn't understand. And when they had someone that had a hard time with math, I would tutor them. But with them talking to me, it was just as though I wasn't college material. And they were right, you know. And when I say they were right, because I went to college, and I remember writing a paper on Zeno in the classes, 210 class. The teacher disagreed with everything I said. She gave me a C in the course, but a few years later, they changed all the textbooks to say exactly what I said. And so that's the kind of things I ran into in college, that I didn't think they could teach me anything. But the most important knowledge that you can get is the knowledge that you teach yourself. Read the Bible, read other books, but reach out and get the knowledge that you can teach yourself. I went into
I remember you telling me that you were hungry up until the age of 10. Is that right? Tell us what happened.
Well, as a matter of fact, I went to the hospital twice before I was in grade school, before I was 5 years old, for malnutrition, almost starved to death. And I was 10 years old. I was in my hallway, and everybody else was outside playing at school. And this beautiful teacher came by that she seemed like such a nice person. And I was in the hallway crying because I was hungry. And she wanted to know why I was crying. And I was ashamed of being poor, but I told her how many days it had been since I'd eaten anything. She accepted that information, walked away, and didn't do anything. And from that point on, I learned that if I was going to eat, I had to feed myself. I was 10 years old when I decided that. And then the question became, well, how do you feed yourself? And I knew I had to get some money. And then the next question was, how do you get money? Then I realized kids came to school every day with lunch money, and I had to get some of it. And so then the question is, well, how do I get that money? I was pretty good at playing cards and stuff. I decided on gambling. And so I could deal from the bottom of the deck. And so I started gambling with those kids. And these people in this world, get them to gamble. But I started gambling with them kids and taking their money every day. And I got so good at gambling that I didn't have to cheat. And then at one point in my life, in my early 20s, I was so good at gambling, I was flying up and down the East Coast from New York to Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Maryland, Miami Beach, Florida, Jacksonville, Florida, Galveston, Texas, just gambling every Friday and Saturday and Sunday, and then fly to the next city, and I would gamble there. Years after I quit gambling, I used money I'd saved from gambling to go to the University of Washington and pay for everything.
Wow.
But the important part of it.
Let me see if I get this. You used to gamble when you were young in order, first of all, to be able to live, just to eat. And then there came a time when you stopped.
That's right.
What made you stop?
Well, first of all, I stopped cheating first because I didn't feel right about that. Okay. And then when I looked at people whose money I was taking, I didn't feel right about that either. Now, I didn't gamble in casinos. I gambled in private homes. Now, I learned to gamble against grade school kids, okay? When I gambled in my adult life, I wanted to gamble against people with grade school mentality. I wasn't trying to find the best gambler there was out there. I was looking at gamblers that was going to lose, because when you gamble for a living, it's not that you're trying to prove you're better than anybody. It's just that you're trying to take home a paycheck, and you're going to win at least 80% of the time. And if you don't, you ain't going to understand why, because you're gambling for a living. It's not your ego trying to prove you're better than someone. But gambling is more about psychology than anything else. People gamble to lose. They don't gamble to win. When they sat down to the table, they came to lose. They might say things like, well, I'll lose a couple $100, then I'm going to quit. All right. But you make sure you're sitting around a table of losers. If you see somebody there that came to win, you don't even want to play at that table. And when you're gambling with a table of losers, it's not that you have to be that sharp. You just have to look like a winner, and then they'll just start giving you their money without realizing what they're doing. You can put a cigar in your mouth, a ring on your finger, dress real sharp, and you can sit down at that table, and they will call when they're supposed to fold, and they will fold when they're supposed to call, and they'll just give you their money.
So, excuse me for asking, but at what time or what point did you stopped and then you started becoming more spiritual? What happened? At what point in your life did that happen?
Okay. Well, I just decided that I didn't want to gamble anymore when I was around 22 years old. And I've always been interested in spiritual things, interested in the Bible. One of the things, saying that I had, that I've used for a long time is one man with God is the majority. In other words, they say it takes a majority in order to move something or to change something, you like a vote or whatever, but one man with God is a majority. And so when you're looking at obstacles that are coming up against, and you think it's too big for me, one man with God is a majority. You don't even have to worry about it. You can do things that, for instance, I was a member of the Inland Boatmen's Union, and I was working on tugboats, and then they said that it was organized crime running the union. I said, why don't you get rid of them? And then they said, you can't get rid of organized crime. They're too powerful. They'll kill you. And I never thought that way. And I was a delegate to the convention, and I went to a convention in Portland, Oregon, and the head of the AFL-CIO was there. He was part of organized crime, and he would sit and have breakfast with the president of this country, and he said he wanted to thank the rank and file membership for inviting them to that convention. When I got a chance to get on the microphone, his name was Paul Hall. I said, Paul Hall, as a member of the rank and file membership, I'm inviting you to get the hell out of our convention and don't ever come back. And everybody shut up, and everybody was scared, and everybody turned around. So what I was saying is what everybody wished they could say. It's what everybody wanted to happen. And sometimes when you have your mind that you want to do the right thing, there's a lot more people behind you than you know. And so they started sneaking up to my room in the hotel asking me, well, who should we put in as president? Who should we put in as this? And all of these things. And I was telling them, and when I went back to Seattle, they would fly in from Hawaii, from Alaska, from different places, asking me who they should elect. And so the president we had in there had been there for 3 terms, and nobody ran against him. And when I said that, one guy from Oregon asked me to nominate him for president. A guy flew in from San Francisco, asked me to nominate him for treasurer. People were asking me to nominate them for different positions. And so I nominated all those people. My region had the most members anyway. And I nominate these people for those positions. And then the president didn't even come in second. The president came in third. And when that happened, I wasn't even working for the union. And I expected somebody from the organized crime to try to kill me. And so when I would drive home, I bought another house, didn't tell anybody where I lived. When I would drive home, I would look around. I wasn't scared, but I was cautious. But Paul Hall, he passed out and went into a coma. And he was so powerful that all the people working for him was afraid to do anything, just in case he woke up and said it was wrong. And so they didn't do anything for a year. After 1 year, after our union had broke away from the SIU union, we were able to affiliate with the ILWU union. And then there was nothing those guys could do about it. And Paul Hall woke up and died right then when there was nothing anybody could do. But,
okay. Well, let me rein you back. I want to just go back a little and tell us about your education, because you mentioned that you ended up going to Washington State for a degree. So tell us about your education, please, what you ended up doing with that.
Okay. Well, University of Washington, I went into this one class. It was Math 105 about functions and stuff. And they said that what they like to do is give people a test at the beginning of the school of the quarter to see how much they need to learn. And so I took a test, and this is the final test they were going to give also. So I took the final test on the first day, and I got 100% on it. And then I asked the teacher, said, should I be going to this? And he still wanted me to go to that class. And I had other problems, like I say, when I gave a final in Classics 210, and they finally changed the textbooks to reflect exactly what I said. And so I went to a counselor, and I said, can you give me some tests so I can find out what classes I should be taking? And so they said, okay, you got to go to see this psychiatrist, I guess, twice a week until she figures out which test to give you. And I would go to that psychiatrist who had a 16-year-old daughter, and she had every problem in the world with her daughter, and she was asking me what she should do about it. And I was explaining it to her what she should do about her problem. And every time I went there, she would bring her problems, and that's the only thing I worked on. And I couldn't see how she was helping me to figure out what I said. So what am I doing here? I asked myself, and then I left. Because before I graduated from high school, I had a whole bunch of encyclopedias that says philosophy made easy, math made easy, and I read all of them, and I had bought a bookcase to put them in. I still have those books upstairs, and that was 60 years ago when I bought them. And I read those things, and that's how I was able to teach teachers about Zeno's theories on change and movement and stuff. But I decided that college was not for me. And I started, and let me tell you why I was able to do it without college. When I was starving, I get books from the library. My mother would read them to me about Marco Polo, traveling over the mountains and over deserts and things, and starving and hungry. And you finally would wind up in some king's castle with all kinds of great food and silks. And the part where you started eating was always the best part of the book for me, you know. And so, stories about that. And so, in order to, I was ashamed of being poor. I didn't speak to people. And so I would go down to Goodwill and get 2 shopping bags full of books. And I would just read them. And I would read and I would read and I would read. I educated myself. I educated myself on so many things. If I got a book on how to buy houses with no money down, which I did get one, I read it 4 or 5 times. Now, people get books where it tells you how to be successful at something, and then they either read half of it or they read the whole thing and set it in the closet, don't do anything. But I would read them 4 or 5 times, and then I would start the work of doing it, and then I would get it done. And so much of what I was able to do, like I used to think that I got rid of organized crime out of the Inland Boaters Union, until I realized later it was y'all that did that. That wasn't me. See? And I looked back and I saw all kinds of places where y'all had reached down and touched my life and guided me in the right direction. Mm-hmm. I was working at Bowling's at one time in the shop I was working. I would finish my work in 4 hours, even though it was an 8-hour shift. And then I would go out in that shop where it wasn't my job. Or there's one girl, she looked kind of nice. I would help her do her work. You know, now y'all picked that girl for me to help. And I never thought about it. I didn't know why. And I was teaching her about metaphysics and all philosophy and all these things. And then it was a young white girl. And then one day, the whole head of Boeing's was coming to our shop. He's in charge of the 35,000 people working there. And the guy, the supervisor, he was scared. They were cleaning everything and dusting everything, trying to get everything polished for when he was coming in. And then here he comes walking in the door just about like a king, with about a half a dozen people walking behind him. He walked into that shop. And that girl that I had been teaching ran over to him, grabbed his hand and said, "Daddy, this is the guy I was telling you about." And so she had been going home telling her father about all the things I was teaching her, and I know he appreciated her learning that. See? And the only reason he was in that shop was to see who his daughter was talking to. See? Now, he didn't want his daughter with a black man because back then, black man or white man walked down the streets in the South, Seattle, the cops would beat them up. And I had no designs on getting that woman as my woman. I was just teaching her because she seemed like a nice person. And so a few days later, my supervisor came in and says, hey, there's a job opening as a plastic tool maker. Would you like it? I said, sure. And so I left that shop and went to a plastic and plaster tool maker. A couple of months later, that supervisor came up and says, there's a job opening as a specialist plastic and plaster tool maker, which is on the other side of the plant. Would you like that? I said, sure. And I go over their work. Now, what was happening was that guy knew that I was teaching his daughter some good stuff, and he really appreciated me. He had somebody offer me all of those jobs, all right? And then when they started laying people off with 19 years seniority and keeping me with 16 years seniority, one time my supervisor tried to fire me, and my supervisor got fired, and I got a pay raise. That's because that guy knew who I was, he knew what I could do, and he knew that supervisor was lying on me, and he was following my career all while I was working at Boeing. And that's because God, Yah, had led me to that one girl in the very beginning. Wow. And he's been leading my steps all of my life. And as he leads my steps, and I don't even know that he's there leading it, it's always just something good. Coming up from being poor to start with. And let me just say one more thing. Like when I decided at 10 years old that if I was going to eat, I had to feed myself. And then I accepted accountability for the problem and I resolved it. Any problem that you come along in life, if you accept accountability for it, rather than blaming the person who did it or blaming somebody else, if you accept accountability for it, God will give you a different way to look at it. And when you're looking at it a different way, he's giving you all kinds of solutions for it. And so whatever that problem is, no matter how big and no matter how small, you can go solve that problem. It don't make any difference what it is. And if you're working on the job and you're solving every problem that comes up, and you're not sitting there arguing saying, well, he did it or they did it, or you'll reach a point where they know that if they need a solution to come to you, and you'll solve everything. And you'll find people leaning in your direction on everything that's going on. Yeah. I've sat on the board of directors of Small Business Export Finance Assistance Center. We were bringing in over $300 million a year. I sat on the board of pension trusts where we were figuring out how to invest $100 million there, here, $100 million there. I designed the health benefit trust, and I sat on that board, and that provided health benefits for thousands of people on the West Coast of the United States. And I've been on the cover of Money Guide magazine. I've been on the cover of on the front page of a newspaper in Moscow, and big huge article there. And I've been all over the world. And when I say one person with God is a majority. A woman came up to me one time, and she wanted to know if I was set on the board of an organization, nonprofit she started in Seattle, where she was taking African immigrant kids and teaching them so that they can learn something other than what gangs are trying to teach them. And she wanted to know if I was set on the board. And I told her, well, look, I'll set on the board under one condition. This woman was from Ethiopia, and they were talking about Ethiopians starving and stuff. I said, I'll sit on that board if you agree that we will build an orphanage in Ethiopia, teach all the kids their trade so they can come out and build buildings and be electricians and plumbers and whatever, and take care of themselves, because most of the orphanages, they were bring kids in and feed them and warehouse them till they're 16 and kick them out And the kids don't know how to live on the street, don't know how to take care of themselves, they don't know how to do nothing. And so when I talked about building an orphanage, what happened when we started doing it is Ethiopian government didn't want any more orphanages for that very reason, because they put the kids out and they don't know anything. And so what we did was we started a foster care program where we started out with 85 kids in Bahir Dar, Ethiopia, and we took them off the streets of Bahir Dar and we put them in a foster care program, and we took care of them until they graduated from college. When we turned them loose, they were lawyers and professors and doctors and nurses. They had a trade and they could make pretty good money. Now, we got people to help us when we started. We started with 85 people. And as those graduated from college and we brought new ones in, since then, hundreds of people have been through that. See? And it wasn't because I had a big stack of money that I was able to do that. I was able to do that because one man with God is the majority. The Masons used to give us money. Now, there's one guy from the Scottish Rite Mason. He came and gave us $85,000. And different people would give us money. And we had people sponsoring the kids, and we charge them $30 a month. And when you get sponsors like that, you're going to have 25, 30 to 50% of them that quit sending money in eventually. We didn't let those kids go hungry. And the reason we didn't let them go hungry is because $30 a month, we would use $15 a month on the kids. And so when someone quit sponsoring the kids, we take the other 15 from one of the other kids and give it to that. And so we were still able to take care of all the kids. And we got a lot of people in Ethiopia now with degrees because of the Blue Nile Children's Organization. And people concern themselves about what is Oprah Winfrey going to do, or what is Jay-Z going to do. They talk about all these people with all the money, but never think about themselves. And I was playing drums one time with a drum group, a black drum group in Seattle. And some guy came from Tacoma, and he wanted to play with us. And he would walk around asking everybody the same question, but he asked me if I was happy. I told him, yes, I'm happy. He says, well, how can you be happy with all those starving people in Africa? I said, I don't know, but I'm real happy. He says, me, with starving kids in Africa, and you can still be happy? I said, wait here a minute. I went to my car and I got my photo album out that had all of them kids in that I was taking care of. And I brought them in and I opened it up. And there was a picture of me with each one of those kids. And I told him what I was doing with those kids. I said, now I'm taking care of hundreds of kids. I know I'll never be in a position to feed all of Africa. I'm doing my part and I don't feel guilty. And I'm happy that these kids are happy, and I'm happy myself. And then I asked him the question, what are you doing? Walked away because he wasn't doing anything except complaining. Now, I've said you can walk by 1,000 starving kids and see all these kids crying, and you can walk around screaming about how bad that is, how somebody should do something, et cetera, et cetera. And when you finish, they're all still going to be hungry and crying. But if you walk past that crowd and gave one of them one French fry, you made something better. And so I used to say as a child, they should do this, or they should, or they should. And then I went to Saudi Arabia, and I was supervisor down there one time, and I started to say they should, and I stopped in the middle of it, and I realized I was they. And not only was I they, I've always been they. And I tell people all the time, if you can think of it, you can do it. And so when you start to just they should start coming out of your mouth, what you're saying is anybody but me. See? And you have no idea what you can do. Now I've had hundreds of kids up until they graduated from. Go ahead.
All right. What I was going to say is,
what were you saying?
You have told us that you were self-educated. You've told us that you worked at Boeing. What else did you do in terms of work?
Well, first of all, working at Boeing, one of the last jobs I had. I worked on the supersonic transport. I was the last one to work on that. And one of the last jobs I did at Boeing was I supervised the building of the mock-up of the AWACS that go on top of a 707. I worked on tugboats in Seattle. I worked. Well, let me tell you about the Coast Guard. I joined the Coast Guard because I didn't want to go to Vietnam because I wasn't going to kill anybody. Now, when I joined the Coast Guard, I was an electronic technician, and so I went to school in the Coast Guard again as an electronic technician, and then I was transferred down south for the ruling prejudice here to Virginia. And when I was down south, I got more captain's mast, which is like a court martial, than anybody in the history of the base. Now, I didn't drink alcohol. I didn't smoke cigarettes. I didn't use profanity. And yet I got more captains. I didn't use any kind of drugs. And I was sort of a model citizen. Now, when it came to why I got all of those captain's masks, I found out later because black people that were in the Coast Guard, they were all working in the kitchen or cleaning officers' rooms and stuff. And electronics is a technical field. And they didn't want me to think that I was better than any of them white folks. And they were going to show that I was no better. And give you an example of one of the things I was brought up on a report for is they blow reveille at 5:30 in the morning. I slept in 15 minutes more. And then I got up. I went to breakfast. I came back. I cleaned my room. When I finished cleaning my room, half the base was still in the bed asleep. And then when I went down to muster at 8 o'clock and everybody else was there at muster, they told me I was on report. And I asked them what for. And they said for sleeping in. I said, just about everybody on the base slept in more than me. Why am I the only one on report? And he said, well, you already had a record and we had to make an example out of somebody. And those are the type of things that I was fined for, confined to the base until the last time they did that. And I'd had enough, and I was a big man then. And I was being sentenced by this captain. And I started slowly walking toward him. And he hollered, stand at attention. And I ignored him. I just kept walking toward him until the other people in the room realized I was trying to get to him. And they jumped and grabbed me from both sides. I didn't resist them. I just stood there looking at the captain. Without saying one word, the captain knew that whole game was over. He knew he wasn't messing with me anymore. That captain was afraid to be on the base with me by himself. And even with somebody else, he didn't want to be on the base with me at night. And he had all kinds of good reasons. There was this one guy that put me on report because I picked up my hat off the floor. I had on a suit and trousers and everything. I was getting ready to go out. I just sat on top of my head, walked a few feet and went upstairs and put it in my locker. And I found out I was on report because I had a military hat with civilian clothes for them few steps. So I fixed him too. I ain't gonna tell you how I did it, but people learn not to mess with me. I worked on, like I said, I worked on tugboats. We towed barges from Seattle to Alaska for the oil fields, and we would have barges longer than a football field, and maybe 5 buildings on them, up to 10 stories tall. And I used to supervise unloading those buildings from the barge and bringing them on shore and make sure they go to the right place in the country. When I was working at Terminal 105, they sent me to Saudi Arabia, where at that time the oil prices was jacked up and everybody was standing in line to get gas, and they wasn't shipping as much oil to this country, and the Arabs were getting so much money that it was just, they were choking in it. And they were ordering things from all over the world. They wanted to modernize their country in Saudi Arabia in 20 years. And so they had ships loaded with everything from ping pong balls to prefabricated hotels. And they were loaded with all of this stuff. Like one ship came in loaded down with Jaguars. And as each Jaguar was unloaded, as soon as it hit the ground, it was sold. And when the last Jaguar was unloaded, that was sold within 3 minutes. And then some sheik jumped in his private airplane and flew to the United States and bought 2 Jaguars, stuck them in his plane, and flew back. But I was, because they had that many ships and they didn't have enough deep water ports to unload them. They had to take barges with tugboats, take barges out to the ships, unload the ships where they were anchored, bring them into shallow water ports, and I supervised unloading from the barge onto the truck until the truck drivers were to take it in the country. And so I did that in 76 and 77. And then I worked for the Inland Boatmen's Union, mostly negotiating contracts. And I ran for regional director at one time, and I didn't win. And I really felt bad because the years I'd worked for the Inland Boatmen's Union, I had done so much for that union, I didn't think they could do without me. But I ran for a higher position, a regional director. And the guy running against me, his campaign slogan was, he'd go around telling people, do you want a Negro running your union? He didn't use the word Negro, but anyway, that worked because the union was just about completely white. And so when I left that union, I had to go back to work on tugboats, and they had me working on running lights. And I would be up there with a tube pouch on. I had a Walkman on. I was listening to classical music. I was on a barge anchored out in the bay. Sun is shining on flat water like glass. I felt like I was in heaven. And I thought about all that stress in the union. And I was so happy to be away from there that I was never going to go back to work for another union. But the Teamsters Union kept calling me, saying, I heard you looking for a job. I kept telling them no. And until finally they offered me enough to where I had to pay attention to it. And so I went down there and I got a job at the Teamsters Union. Now, through all this union work, one of the things that I learned is, like, I've been to so many different board meetings, and sometimes, like with one King County, when I was negotiating with King County, negotiating contracts, I represented all of the labor unions, because all of the labor unions, all of them were under one contract with the county, and each union, the only thing they negotiated was the amount of pay that they got. But I had negotiated their vacations and everything else, their pensions and health benefits, and the rules. And so those guys knew me. And so with all those different board meetings I would go to, I found out that you can be in control of those meetings. And in control of those meetings, if you, first of all, I always told the truth. I took a course called Pursuit of Excellence in 1982.
Hold on.
And that's one of the things they stressed, was always tell the truth.
Hold on a moment. You're about to go into telling everybody about your principles of success, right? So go ahead and tell us about the principles of success as you're linking it with your work that you did.
Okay. As far as principles of success is, I made a video about that. And the first thing that I put on that video is always tell the truth. Now, most people tell the truth most of the time, but they slip a lie in there every now and then, and they don't feel like it hurt anything. I learned in 1982 to always tell the truth. I was fairly honest before then, but then when it reached the point to where you're going to always tell the truth. Like someone want to borrow some money, you can say, I don't have it. I don't say that. I just say no. And then they say, well, don't you have it? I said, well, none of your business. But anyway, I learned to always tell the truth. And when you're on a job like I was, representing all those unions, and you're reporting back to the unions about negotiations and things, and you always tell the truth under any circumstances, they know you always tell the truth. When I'm sitting down to negotiate with management, they know that I always tell the truth. And so when you got everybody that you're working with, know that you always tell the truth, you can come tell them something, and they have no question about it. They know that it's going to be the truth as you know it. They look at you and they know honesty when you see it. You don't have to go around telling people, I always tell the truth. All you have to do is always tell the truth. When I'm in court to testify, they put the Bible up there. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? And I says, no, I'm not going to lie on that Bible. They said, well, you're supposed to tell the truth. I said, yeah, you're supposed to tell the whole truth too. I don't know the whole truth. I only know what I know. I'll tell the truth as I know it. And it might be right, it might be wrong, but it's what I believe to be the truth. And I promised to do that, And they allowed me to testify. And when I finished testifying, they knew I was telling the truth without me saying nothing else. I didn't say what people expected me to say. I said the truth. All right? And so always tell the truth, and people will get to know that you always tell the truth. And they'll respect you, and they will trust you, and they will trust your words.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing I learned is that when you go ahead. The next one is going into a board meeting. When you go into a board meeting, you want to be the smartest person in that room. Now, a lot of you might be wondering, how could I possibly be the smartest person in the room? Well, I'm telling you, you don't need to be a college graduate or have a degree to be the smartest person. You don't need to be a genius to be the smartest person. In order to be the smartest person in the room, all you have to do is take every piece of paper dealing with whatever meeting it is you're having and read all of it, read every part of it. And then you might read some of it 2 or 3 times. And when you walk into that boardroom, you're going to be sitting in front of a board where you probably don't have one other person that read the whole thing. And if you read it, and if you read it enough times, then you're the expert on what's being written there. And so I'll give you an example. We had an attorney on one board on the pension trust, and we told them to change our bylaws in 5 different places. And so we met once every 3 months. And I know what he did. He accepted that what he had to do, and he went home, knew he had 3 months to do it. He procrastinated to the last minute. And then in the last minute, he said, oh, I got to write this. And he wrote that and read, came down there and put it on the table. He probably had proofread it himself. And so he said, I made those changes, and here they are. All you have to do is vote to pass them, and they'll be part of your bylaw. I said, well, let me read them first. And of course, he had to let me read them. The rest of the people on the board thought I was wasting their time. I read through them, and for the changes to the bylaws, there was something wrong with it. I explained what was wrong with 3 of the changes, and everybody on the board agreed that we had to change that. When it came to the 4th one I was talking about, the attorney says, you don't have to worry about that. Nobody's going to do that, because that 4th one was a loophole which someone could take advantage of and get $8 million out of the trust. And so I told him, I said, well, you do have to worry about it, because if we leave that loophole in there, I'm going to resign from the board. I'm going to start my own insurance company, and I'm going to come back here and get that $8 million. You should have seen them snatching that off the table. But there's so many things that like all the books I used to read is the reason that I learned to read things. When you buy a car, they give you a contract. On one side, they tell you all about what extras you get. And when you sign that paper on that side, it says you're agreeing to both sides of the paper. On the other side, it's faded writing, and nobody reads that. I read it. The guy that was selling me the car never read it and had no idea what was on there. And when I finished reading it, I said, okay, cross out this, and this, and I'll sign it. He said, we can't cross those things out. It's a standard contract. Everybody signs the same contract. I said, that's fine. I said, so I handed him his contract back. I said, I'm going to a car dealer that know how to cross things out. I'm going to buy a car from him. They grabbed me at the door and brought me back, and they crossed those things out. What those things did is negated your warranty. They give you your warranty on one side, and then they take it away from you on the other side. Anytime you have a contract already written up, and it's just for you to sign, is normally written up to the benefit of the person that paid that attorney to write it up. It's not written up to your benefit at all. When you're buying something on the internet for $6, and then they say, and you agree to the rest of this agreement, and then you start reading it and see it's 55 pages long and don't get around to all of it, I guarantee you down to the bottom of it is where the catch is, where they're going to start snatching money out of your account every month if you're not careful. And so never sign those things. But when you walk into the boardroom, if you read every piece of paper involving what you're talking about, you're the smartest person in the room. I go to the Allegheny County Health Department, and they have county commissioners board, and then they have one woman there that reads the minutes, reads for everything. That's the person that knows everything. That woman sitting there, not the commissioner. And so that's one of the things that's very important. I can tell you other things I read, like when I was selling a house, mortgage guarantee, or they give you 14, 15 pages of stuff, and you sign an initial everywhere. And I read that thing. When I finished reading it, when I showed them the typos and what was wrong, that woman on the other side of the counter jumped up and ran out the room to her boss, and they looked at it and all, and they were shocked that was in there. They had their attorney write it up, and then they changed it on the computer. But everybody before me signed that defective document, and so you want to be the smartest person in the room.
All right, Elder.
Another.
What was the next principle? Moving on to the next principle. You've had two. Always tell the truth and read everything.
Two more principles. Yeah. And read everything. Okay. The next principle a lot of people don't realize is you can volunteer your way into the White House. Now, nobody thinks about them going to the White House or having any influence in the White House. But you can volunteer your way into the White House. When I was working for the labor union, the Inland Boatmen's Union, this guy that became a representative in the House of Representatives in Washington, D.C., he was from our state. He called me and asked me who should his office staff be. And I looked at all the different people that volunteered for the union, and I put down a list of them, and I said, this is who your office staff should be. He hired every last one of those. Okay? And after he was, when he got out of the House of Representatives, he was governor of the state of Washington. And there's this one woman that was running for Senate, Patty Murray, for the state of Washington. And Slade Gordon had been in there 2 terms, and I wanted to get rid of him. And Patty Murray was the only one I knew that was running, and nobody knew her. I went out into the woods where her campaign was to work with her campaign. And when I went out into the woods, she had a spaghetti potluck at her house. And so she told me all the things that she was going to do, and she listened to what I said should be done. And then I gave her a check for me to run for office. The business representative I was with, he didn't want to give her any money, but he felt ashamed because I gave her money. So he wrote her a check also. And then I gave her a check from the union I worked for. And then I went back to the union and I told them to put her in the union newspaper and to support her for senator. And they trusted my suggestions. And so after I told my union that, I went around to all the other unions and I represented them when we were negotiating with the city and with the county. And I told them to put her in their newspapers and to back her up for Senate. And they all did that, okay? And she became a senator back in the 80s. I think she's still in there now. I don't know for sure. And then I was at this one fundraiser for this guy that was running for King County councilman. And I went out on the front porch, and this Asian guy, Gary Locke, he came out on the porch, and he sat down next to me, and he told me he was going to run for governor. And so I invited him to come to our union meetings to talk to the members, because the governor that was in there, I had made a statement in the Bremerton Sun newspaper, and that whole front page of that newspaper was just on what I told this one reporter, and some of it was on the second page. And I told them I was going to get rid of the governor that we had, and we were going to get somebody else in there. And so then when this guy came out, I invited him to our union meeting, one union meeting, and then I sent invitations to the other two guys that was running for governor. Those other two guys didn't show up. The only one that showed up was this Asian guy. And I let him talk to our membership. And when he finished talking to our membership, I let him, I took a picture of him with the Hertz Rent-A-Car shop steward, with the Seattle City Light shop steward, with the Bar Marché. I took a picture with a lot of shop stewards and put it in our newspaper. I went around to all the other unions and told them to put him in their newspapers. And he got in all of those newspapers. And not only that, when he was sitting on the porch, I told him what to use for a platform. And he used that platform, and he was elected governor. And he had told me anytime I wanted to, I could come spend the night in the governor's mansion. I could come down there for dinner or whatever. But when he left the office of governor, he got appointed to Barack Obama's cabinet. And Barack Obama's cabinet, like if you need influence somewhere, Barack Obama's cabinet is a very powerful place to need influence. See, I didn't need influence. I wasn't trying to get a job. If I was trying to get a job, he probably could have introduced me to some billionaire who could have gave me a job that's a little bit higher than minimum wage. but there's the book, Think and Grow Rich, was it? Anyway, there was one book where all he talked about was volunteering for some of the most powerful people in the world. And when you volunteer, you're not asking for money. And almost every employer will try you out. And if you volunteer and you walk in there always telling the truth, and you walk in there being the smartest person in the board, in the room, in the meeting, and you're around people that have the ability to do some things for you, you can volunteer yourself into some very powerful positions. When I worked for Crowley Maritime Corporation, I volunteered on the union for negotiating committee, for executive board, for the delegate to the convention. I volunteered for all those things. And then when one union representative quit, executive board appointed me. I never could have got in there as a black person because they weren't going to vote for a black person as a business representative. But most of the people on the executive board, because I work with that board, I got them on there. I appointed them in there. And so all of them got me in there. And then once I worked for the first 3 years, then when I ran for office as a business representative, I won. I was elected overwhelmingly. Okay, and I did it for 4 more years. But if you can volunteer, like the president would love to have you volunteer and do some work for him, and the governor would love to have you volunteer and do some work for them. The mayors would love to have you volunteer. If there's the president of Boeing, if you have a special charity like, and you volunteer to work on that charity, and you're the smartest person in the room, and they see it and they recognize it, there's a step for you. I mean, that's almost more valuable than a college education. And so tell the truth, be the smartest person in the room, and volunteer your way into the White House. Now, in life, almost everything you do in life, you're selling yourself. Almost everything you do, you're selling yourself. When you go to sell something to somebody, you walk into somebody's office, you want to sell them something, and you see paintings on the wall. You introduce yourself, start asking them about the paintings on their wall. They got those things on their wall. That's what they're interested in. And they want to talk about what they got. If you see a trophy case full of trophies, ask them about the trophies. That's what they want to talk about. That's what they're proud of. That's what they got in front of them. Mm-hmm. And so you ask them about things, and you talk about the things in that office, and say, hey, well, you know, that looks like a Tiffany lamp. Is that a Tiffany design? And let them tell you about that. Okay? And so now you develop a rapport with this person. Now, there's more to developing a rapport than that. If you walk in and you finally sit down and you see his hands are folded, fold your hands. If you see him leaning forward in the chair, then you lean forward. If you see one of his legs cross over the other, cross your legs. If you can notice the rhythm in which he's breathing, breathe in the same rhythm that he's breathing. And then when you start talking to him, selling your product, and they can reach a point where you see their eyes glossed over, and you know they're not listening to you anymore. Now, most people start talking even harder to try to get them back into it. But what you do is you back off of what you're doing and start talking about things in their office again. Start talking about things that they're interested in again. And re-establish that rapport. If you talk, when you sell, you say, listen, 20% of the time, listen 80% of the time, and talk 20% of the time. Because the 80% of the time, when that person is talking, they're going to tell you exactly what you need to say in order to sell them. And so what you're saying back to them is exactly what they told you to say. Okay? And so that works good if you're going to interview for a job. That works good no matter what you're going to do. And so learn to be a good salesperson. Oh boy, it's just, I never get angry. You know, I haven't been angry since 1982, and I never get angry. Nothing can make me angry. You can walk in here and curse me out today. I know you have a problem. That's not my problem. Anger is a punishment you give yourself for something somebody else did wrong, and I don't punish myself that way. Okay? Wow. And when I'm okay. And when I'm negotiating contracts, I listen to them. I listen to them on the other side, and while this, no matter what they're saying, I listen carefully, and I sit there and I hear management saying something, and then the union screaming at them, union mad, and then the manager's mad, and neither side know what the other side is saying. The only one that knows what's being said in that room is me, because I'm not angry and I'm listening carefully. And I was listening one time, and the people on the other side, I knew they didn't know what they were saying, because they were offering something that if they knew they were saying it, they wouldn't have offered it. Okay, and our side looked at it as completely negative. And so the president on my side was arguing, the regional director was arguing, the national representative was arguing. When everybody quieted down enough so I can get my 2 cents in, I told management, can you write that down and give us a copy of it so we can, when we meet by ourselves, we can talk about it. They were so happy that there's somebody that was listening to them. They put that on paper real fast and handed it across the table. Now, they did that 3 times when I told them to write it down. And then when we divided up, management going to this room, labor going to the other room, so we can talk about some things in private, I told them they didn't know what they were talking about. What they offered, when the tankerman go to work, he's going to get double pay from the first minute he starts. They're going to pay him 8 hours as a deckhand, and then they're going to have to start paying him hourly as a tankerman, and they're paying twice the money they expect to pay him. And I says, now, the reason I had them write it down is because once you write it down and pass it to the other side, if you cannot get an agreement and you implement your own agreement, you have to implement all the things that you wrote down and offered to the other side. And then they were stuck with it as though it was in a contract. And so we couldn't get an agreement. And so our people went to work, and I told all the tankermen, on your first paycheck, come into our office and bring your paycheck with you, and we'll file a grievance. They all filled out grievances. And then I went to management of that company. And I said, now, here's a grievance, and this is what's wrong with the paycheck. And I explained to them what they agreed to do. And they started hollering, we didn't agree to that. And then their attorney was sitting on the other side of the table. He said, well, yeah, you did agree to that. So their attorney is saying they agreed to it. They got so scared once they knew that was in the contract. They were begging us to get back to the table to negotiate so they can give us the contract we proposed. And so we didn't want to take advantage of them. We went back to the table, gave them the contract we proposed, and they just signed it. So listening is a very important part of everything, and listen carefully. And when you catch things like that, when everybody start realizing that you want, that can take you a long way in life. I was sitting right here in my house the other day, and I had a guy filming me with the photographers in here and interviewing. And every time someone want to know something about United States Steel, they have newspaper reporters come and ask me about it. You can reach a point where people reach out to you to get information and to find out things. And
okay. So I have
never
another
allow
question.
any project.
You've given us 5 of your principles. Are there any more you want to share? Any more principles?
As far as being successful, well, and I may have mentioned this before, but let me say 2 things, okay? One person with God is a majority. In other
Yeah.
words, don't let something stop you because you're the only person trying to get it done. One person with God is a majority. And I'll tell you one other thing that's really important that most people don't realize how much power they have in it. Like I said, we're made in God's image. And whether you know it or not, we can create miracles. And they're not hard to do, they're easy. But what I want to tell you is with the faith of a mustard seed, you can move a mountain. Now, everybody knows that, but we don't often see preachers moving mountains. We don't see people doing things like that. Now, like I say, I got rid of organized crime out of the inland boat. God did that out of the inland boat, Missouri. Yah did that. But with the faith of a mustard seed, you can move a mountain as long as you know you can do it. Now, when you see people in church trying to heal people, they'll say things like, "Oh God, please reach down, touch this body, cleanse every cell," and going on and on and on and on. But like in the Bible, when Jesus tried to heal people, he would say, "Rise and walk, you're healed." You know, like he wasn't begging nobody to be healed. He just knew they would be healed. Now you use faith and you do miracles every day and you don't even know it. Now, 10,000 years ago, if you walked into a room and reached over and flicked the switch and all the lights came on that room, everybody would scare everybody in there. They would think it's the end of the world. They would think it's a miracle because all the lights came on in this room. Now, right now, today, we take it for granted, okay? We know that the light comes on because there's a vacuum bulb up there. We know it's hooked up to wires. We know the wires is hooked up to the switch. We know that electricity is coming into the house. And we know when we flip up the switch and it connects the wires that causes the light come. We know that, all right? But let's say you walk into your house and you get ready to turn the switch on and you stop and think and say, wow, that bulb has been in there for 5 years without blowing out. I know it's got to blow out sometime. I don't know why it lasted so long. I'm going to have to get me a bulb and put it right here by the door. So when that bulb blows out, I'll have one there. You say that to yourself and then turn the light on. That light ain't coming on. That light's going to blow out. You may have done that in the past, and I've done that several times. As soon as I had my doubt, that light quit coming on. And that light may have came on the first 2 years because it was hooked to wires and all of these other things. But the last 3 years, it may have just been coming on because I had faith. My faith was so strong, I didn't look at the switch. I didn't look at the bulb. I didn't pray for God to make it happen. I just went over there and flipped the switch, and that thing just came on. If you can have that kind of faith about whatever it is you're trying to do, you can do it. I wrote a book called The Messiah Seeds Resurrection, and one of the things I mentioned in that book was there was this 5-year-old kid, my wife's grandson, and he was living with us for a while. And so I taught him how to lay hands on and heal people. I taught him how to do that. And he was 5 years old. Now, you take a 5 years old, you can tell them about dragons and they'll believe it. They're going to believe whatever you tell them. You're the adult. I told him how to heal people. And so he goes to the church, sits on the bench. Organ player says, this is before church starts, that she ain't going to be able to play because her shoulder's hurting. He jumped up and said, I can fix it. That's what he said. And she sort of humored him, and she was in her 70s, and she went and sat down next to him, and he did what he was supposed to do. And to her surprise, all the pain was gone. See, she didn't have faith in this guy. She didn't have to have faith. All you need is one person having faith. That kid knew he could do it. He could probably believe in dragons, but he knew he could do it. You can take kids, and it's a good time to get them when they are 4 and 5 and 6 years old. You can take kids and teach them. Like we teach them now that, oh, you can't do this. Oh, you can't do that. Oh, this is impossible. Oh, that's impossible. Go to your dictionary, open it up to the page that says impossible, and scratch that out of your dictionary. And let those kids know that you can do this, and you can do that. And with God, you are a majority.
Mm-hmm.
So learn to use your faith. I've never tried telling someone to get hypnotized to learn to use it. That might be the way to do it. But you need to believe. You need to believe when you're trying to do something. And you'd be amazed at what you can create in life.
All right. Well, so we've had you and Yah are the majority. Tell the truth all the time. Read everything so that you can be the smartest person in the room. Volunteer your way to the top. We've had learn to sell, and we've had listen carefully, and now faith is knowing. Is there anything else you want to share on the success principle side?
Well, let me just say this, that the Bible says some people believe that God said, "Let there be light," and create the whole universe. Some people believe with the faith of a mustard seed you can move a mountain. Some people believe Jesus said there'll be those that come after me, they'll do greater works than I. Some people believe that they were made in God's image. The difference between me and the people that believe it is I know those things are true. Okay? So when you look inside yourself, if you don't know, that means that you haven't quite got the information that you're supposed to have. And then the question some people might have is, how do you know that you know? And I say it's like if you have to go pee. I know I got to go pee. And you can argue all you want to. I'm leaving in the middle of that argument because that don't mean nothing to me. And so when you know stuff and people start arguing, that don't mean nothing to you. You just know. But it's okay for them to believe what they want to believe, because we all have our own universe. Like God said, "Let there be light." Your word creates also. Your word has power. You create your universe with your word. And the universe you create is going to be different from what the universe your sister creates. Everybody have their own universe. When you see two people sitting there arguing, and one person cannot see why the other person can't understand, and then you can't see why they can't understand you, and you're just going back and forth, what you don't understand is that there's people that you're both right in your own universe. You're right in your universe. There ain't no point in even arguing the point. Let them go ahead and believe. If they ever reach the point where it's time for them to learn something else, when the student is right, the teacher will appear. And let them be where they are, and don't let that affect you negatively.
Okay.
And,
Well,
and,
Elder,
and don't feel that you have to be right.
Elder, you are in a particular position now. You are, do you mind if I say how old you are? Okay.
I don't mind at all. I'm
Right.
78 years old.
You're 78 years old. Now, I would like to know, what's your ambition now? What is your challenge now? What's your next big goal that you're aiming for now?
I'm right in the middle of it. And 78 years old, I haven't stopped learning. I haven't stopped teaching myself things. I've learned a way to raise my vibration. Like the book Think and Grow Rich. I was watching someone on the other day that read that book every day for 60 years. Now, I've read that book several times myself. Now, this guy had 500 of the richest people in the world, and not only did he studied them every day for 60 years. Like, almost the whole book by heart. And you don't want to just learn how to go and do something. You want to make it a habit. Like, you don't have to figure out how to light a cigarette and smoke it. You just do it. You want success to be just as easy as just doing it. You want to bring it in 100,000, 200,000. You want to make that a habit. When you buy a book or read a book, and there's all kinds of good things in it, and then there's one part in that book that's really complex and complicated, and it just mesmerizes you, and you know that you're not going to remember by the time you get to the end of the book. Open the book to that page and leave that half a rubber band holding it open. And then read that page every day for 2 months. It might be one paragraph in that page. And when you finish, you want to know it better than the person that wrote it. Okay, now I'm talking about books that bring you real value. Okay, you want to know it better than the person that wrote it. And so right now, I'm working on developing myself into the God in whose image I am made. That's what I'm working on right now. I'm teaching some people in Africa, teaching them to develop themselves into the God in whose image they're made. I make videos and I send them over there to Africa. And there's a village over there that I'm working with the people in that village. I send them books about different things. And my point is, and the book I wrote, the title of it is Messiah Seeds Resurrection. The Messiah Seeds Resurrection. And part of that is to teach you how to develop yourself into the God in whose image you're made. And I put that book out in 2018, and there's some things in it that's not right because I've learned since then, and I'm always learning. And so there are other things. I'm writing 2 other books right now, and as far as right now, I can think of a person that 2,000, like what I did the other day. I thought of a person that's 2,500 miles from me, and they called me 10 seconds later. And then I thought of somebody else that's a long ways from me, and they called me within 5 minutes. They're thousands of miles away from me, and they called me within 5 minutes. And these are people that haven't called me in a long time. Mm-hmm. And when you start developing and start growing, there's a lot of things.
Okay, so Elder, what I'm hearing is that you are at a stage in your life where you are writing books and seeking to pass the information that the Most High has blessed you with on to the next generation. So what I'd like to ask you, for the people who have been listening to you tonight or will pick up this program later, what advice will you give to the people who are hearing your story and would like to know how they can implement the principles of success in their life? What advice would you give them?
Well, first of all, the principles, those 5 that I mentioned, is something that they should incorporate it into their life. And there are several books written about how to be successful, how to make money, and people buy it, and they might read half of it, or they might buy it and set it in the closet and do nothing with it, or they might read the whole thing and not do anything. And find the best way, what you want to do to get to where you're going. And if there's a book that tells you to do, not only read it once, read it several times, become the expert that person is that wrote the book, and then get off in there. If I hand somebody $1 million $1 bills and say, count it and it's yours, they might quit before they got through all the money. People don't want to put in the work. And no matter who it is, if you see them really being a success in life in so many ways, they're working their butt off. You have to put the work in it. You have to stay focused. Stay focused on where you're going and what you're trying to do, and make sure you accomplish it.
All right. Well, we thank you for your time, Elder Johnie Perryman. But I'd like to give you one last opportunity. Is there anything else that you would like to share with the people who have been watching?
Well, let me just, there's always something else. And I can't emphasize it enough, that it's important that man and woman is together. It's important that you have a woman in your life. If the man sent the right energy to the woman in his life, she can create any and everything. And if inside of you there is a God, get to know that God inside of you. Get to talk to that God on a regular basis. Be on a real friendly relationship with that God. And once you're ready for it, and you look inside of you, you'll find there's a God in there of the opposite sex. There's a male and a female. Get to know both of them. Let the two of them get to know each other. Let the two of them get to love each other. If you feel that God inside of you and you feel those gods loving each other, what will happen is you will turn into love. Now, anybody that's been in love before knows that when you're in love, all kinds of people are attracted to you. If you turn into love, all kinds of people will be attracted to you. But acknowledge the male and the female gods inside of you, and acknowledge the love between the two of them.
Okay, Elder, I want to thank you for your time again. If people want to connect with you, how can they do so? They want to get to connect with Elder Johnie Perryman. What should they do?
Well, my email is johnnyperryman@yahoo.com, and Johnie is spelled JOHNIEPERRYMAN @yahoo.com. They can connect with me, Johnie Perryman, on Facebook, and Johnie is spelled JOHNIE. And the book I wrote, Messiah Seeds Resurrection, is on Amazon, and name I have is Johnie Ohenaba Perryman. Ohenaba is my the name I use for writing. It's my pen name. And when I was in Ghana, I met someone who was called Henaba, and Henaba means child of the king, and that's what we all are. I've been to Ghana, to Ethiopia. I've been all over the world. But
Right.
And if you got that book, my contact information is in that book also.
All right. So we want to thank you. For those of you who are out there and watching, and while you hang around, Elder, while I just close up the what I have to say with everyone on here at the moment. So for those of you out there who have any questions, if you post those questions, I'll ensure that's while I'm talking that he comes back and he answers those questions. But in the meantime, if there are no questions, we're going to be closing in a little while. So like, subscribe, share, and click the bell so that you'll get more uploads whenever we come on live. If you are with us and you're constantly on, we want to say thank you very much for supporting our ministry, because you know that these technical things don't come absolutely free. They come at a cost. And also we want to thank you because it is always our desire to bring people from our community who have a story to tell, who have a way of edifying our people, who will influence us to do something good and please the Most High. We like to have interviews with them. So even if you may have some suggestions of people that we should interview, well, write to me, HebrewApostolic@gmail.com, HebrewApostolic@gmail.com, or HebrewInterviews@gmail.com, and I would love to hear from you. Hallelujah. I don't see any questions at this time. So what I want to say is thank you to each and every one of you. Thank you for our in-house people. Thank you for those who have come from somewhere else. The next time we will be back will be on Wednesday when we do our judges briefing, and on Thursday 7:30, which is 2:30 Eastern Standard Time, when we do our Bible class. We look forward to seeing all of you, and in the meantime we say Shalom, my ishpaka, my family. May Yahweh barak you in the truth. In the meantime, we look forward to seeing you again real soon. Bye now.